Hello everyone. How are we all feeling today? Doing good? Raptoris, Jakista, Lidsel, Nolam, Constantine, Badroom Master, and the very many people lurking. Welcome, one and all. Exhausted, but your glass work's done. True. Huge. What a day. What a day we seem to be having. I rushed home, so you'll have to forgive a little bit of crunch. Because I desperately need to eat something. Because if I'm going to scream, I need to be adequately, fed. And so we're gonna... You'll have to forgive the crunch. But oh boy. So, I feel like there was other news that I wanted to talk about, but I've completely forgotten about it. What it was, what I intended to say, what I was doing, because Warhouse Studios decided today of all days is the ideal time to announce Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 slated for release this year. Why are there so many history games this year? True. So true. So enormously true. There are so many history games this year. I frankly was not prepared. But oh boy. So, here's the plan. I watched the trailer on my phone. Right after getting home while I was cutting open some summer sausage. So I didn't actually absorb anything in the trailer. So we're just gonna read through some stuff. Right, we're gonna watch the trailer, we're gonna read through the IGN interview with the devs, and then we're gonna talk. And then we're gonna talk. Because I have opinions. Like, if you've been around here for any length of time, you know that I am a rather vocal hater of Kingdom Come Deliverance, and I have the qualifications to justify that hatred. I'm sorry, you cannot, under any circumstances, make a pretzel cost a week's worth of wages and have me take your video game seriously. Shoutouts to Jan Kramer for doing the research on that one. I am merely the vessel for more experts on that front. But the combat is hard, therefore it's realistic. Everyone fights like they're sparring like professionally trained soldiery, operating in the height of 16th century Italian longsword manuals. Ignore the fact that we're in the 15th century and not in Italy. See, when I saw that spin attack, I was like, I actually don't hate it. But I didn't actually look at it to see if it's the reasonably attested spin attack, of which there are several, or if it is the goofy cinematic TM spin attack. Because both of those are things that exist. One of them we don't complain about, one of them we very much complain about. So this should be fun. Oh boy. In the meantime, though, if anyone has other news announcements or things that they saw, please also drop links while we're cooking with some Kingdom Come, because I would like to catch up on the rest of the History Game Sphere news space. We'll talk about Hades 2 when Hades 2 actually hits early access, but yes, Hades 2 is in a technical test right now. They somehow went hornier. Warning for anyone who missed it, the trailer has a lot of hanging imagery. Can we get a, Peter, could you type up and pin a content warning for, gore, and hanging? Because those are things. Oh, Felvidek is also out. Did Warhorse hire the guy who made Felvidek? Yes. But it's technically, it's Slovak, not Czech. And the guy is somehow an even bigger mess, but in a completely different way. I saw Felvidek and was like, that looks interesting, and then I forgot about it completely. We'll check that out. We'll check that out at the end to be like, hey, by the way, let's take a look at that. I mean, guy looked like it was a mess. Yeah, right, like the guy being the main character, not the developer. Main character looks like he's a complete disaster of a human being, and we love that. Yeah. Okay. Where do we even begin? Chat, should we start by just watching... Should we start by just watching the trailer? Yes, by the way, it is a remix of Four Seasons. Good catch. At the beginning, I hear it's a very good... Yeah, but the beginning would be Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, and I don't know that I need to rehash my grievances. We'll rehash the grievances as we're working our way through. Watch and stop whenever something interesting happens. I think we can do that. So, as we do, firstly, there's a whole bunch of folks here. Welcome, one and all. If you've not been around for a while, hi, I'm Adam. I am a museum curator by day, and I yell about history on the internet at night. So I also have a degree, BA and an MA in medieval history, and I'm a published author in games and published academic on games and history. So as we go through this, if you have questions, want to talk about things, or generally think it's a good time, make sure you hit the follow button and hang out and chat. It's a lot more fun when we're all chatting, typing, yelling, collectively suffering, posting emotes, squishing emotes, whatever you feel like. By the way, chat, squish smug. Use channel points to squish smug. Just trust me. Yelling about history at night is a healthy enrichment activity. Oh, it sure is. So, anyway, if you do enjoy this, of course, also make sure you hit the follow button for everything we're doing, because holy moly, 2024 is stacked. Have you seen the Fallout series on Amazon? I have not yet. I know it exists. I know people like it. I am surprised by the second as much as the first. I was expecting it to be trash. Anyway. Oh, hey. You know, we do be winning because the bots have shown up. Thank you, mods. Woohoo! Chat, we made it. We've got spam bots again. Okay. Enough rambling. Let's get into this. No, I'm not procrastinating. No, I'm not scared. What are you talking about? Chat, you're all 17 or older, right? That didn't take long. Huh. Kurabachi, hello. He's so squished.
I always dreamt of leaving this place. Becoming more than a peasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know the trouble with an adventurer's life? It can end before it gets started.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Congratulations, Sir Knight. You finally become a man.
Wake up! Pull yourself together, Henry.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nobody will hand anything on up
Uh-huh.
to men like you and me.
You still have a long way to go till your work is done.
Yeah. Cool. Wow.
Merciful God, be kind and protect us, so we don't blow our arses off. Amen.
Huh. Okay then. I'm amazed that they appear to have almost completely failed to market the things that people tend to really like about Kingdom Come Deliverance in this trailer. Because the one thing that incontestably Kingdom Come Deliverance was fucking fantastic at is the natural environments, flora more than fauna, of medieval Bohemia. We saw exactly one field of flowers. In this entire thing, we saw one field of flowers. Also, would it make more sense to have Kingdom Come something else instead of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2? Yes, but observe they quietly removed the colon. It's now just Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. It is a fairly accurate simulation of a specific small area of Bohemia. Yeah, let's pull up Google Maps. Yes, Google Maps, and let me show you where Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 and 2 is going to take place. Nope. If I could type. This square is the map of Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. It looks an awful lot like this square is going to be the map of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So, Right? What I expect the Kingdom Come Deliverance to do? To actually I expected it to actually drag us this direction. Right? It said, no, screw you. And said, its major cosmopolitan city is, in German, Kudenberg, in Czech, Kutná Hora. This is the big major city that they are trying to claim is ginormous and major and a massive technical difficulty. Let's see. Let's see if we're able to find. I'm just doing a quick search in the other window here to see if I can find what the population of Kutná Hora was. In the early 15th century. Because, historically, not second biggest city in Bohemia. But the second biggest city in Bohemia is bloody fucking tiny. Right? Like, I need to... Let's see. Oh, good. 2 cases of healed severe skull trauma in males buried in medieval mass graves in Kutná Hora. Man, these are wild Google Scholar results. Let's just enjoy these Google Scholar results for a moment. Medieval skeletal series from Kutná Hora sedlets with a notable surplus of men. 2 cases of healed severe skull trauma in males buried in medieval mass graves in Kutná Hora sedlets. Bioarchaeology of past epidemic and famine-related mass burials with respects to recent findings from the Czech Republic. Sedlets ossuary. Kuenberg decree on the withdrawal of the German students from Prague in 1409. Let's see. Do you happen to actually say what the size of this is? At the end of the 14th century, Kutná Hora had about 8,000 inhabitants. But potentially as high as 10 to 15,000 by 1500. So let's assume that it is that, probably on the smaller end, that 8 to 10,000 people. So, right, not bad. That's a pretty good sized medieval city. But that's not big. Even by, like, compared to Sasova, yeah, Sasau, pretty big. Compared to Prague, minuscule. Let's see. Ooh, Wikipedia may actually have, like, useful information for us. Maybe. Historical population. In 1370 had a population of approximately 40,000, and by 1600 had a population of 60 to 70,000. So somewhere in the 50,000 range in 1409, 1410. Right. Kutná Hora is the second largest city in Bohemia, at about 15% the size of Prague. it is nowhere near a cosmopolitan capital, just historically. Right? What Kutnahora is it is a silver mining town. Right? Kutnahora had some of the largest silver mines in Europe in this period. So its wealth to population is actually wildly skewed. But in terms of raw number of people, there's not necessarily a lot going on. Anyway, but what's important here, since luckily they gave us just enough oomph in this book, just a smidge of access, a touch of access to education and society in the Middle Ages. And being a well-written academic chapter, it hits us with the fun facts that are desperately important. On the 18th of January 1409, a decree was issued from the Royal Chancellery of Václav IV in Kutná-Hora, which fundamentally altered the old constitution of Prague University, giving a voting majority to the representatives of the Bohemian nation. So, this is important. Thank you, Peter. The context, remember, this needs to fit into a broader context here. The entire period, 1403 to like 1415-ish, is a period of civil war in the Holy Roman Empire. Right, that's the background for the first game. Right, we have Sigismund and Václav, or Wenceslaus, engaging in civil war, and this is a move within the context of that civil war, right? The giving the Bohemian people more representative, I mean, it's not parliamentarian things, but, right, giving them more control over imperial business, including education, in Prague, is a way of attempting to drum up support among the nobility of Bohemia against Sigismund. Did they give an exact date for this game? As far as I know, they did not. They did for the first game, though. First game was in 1402. And so we can assume it's somewhere between 1403 and 1410. Because we have seen Sigismund, we're presumably still seeing Václav, we're presumably still seeing a lot of these people, right? And so somewhere in this first decade of the 1400s is still going to be accurate. Please let Pebbles still be around. Please let Pebbles survive. Please let Pebbles survive. Base Mr. Pebbles. Oh, okay, we got all of two pages, which is luckily enough. Hooray. So, what else does this tell us? Right, why are they selecting Kutná-Hora instead of Prague? It's the location of the royal court of one of the factions. Right. Remember, the game, Sigismund, right, Holy Roman Emperor Sigismund, is the person who kills Henry's parents, or rather, one of his generals is the person who kills Henry's parents in the beginning of the first game. So obviously Henry is being a good Bohemian and supporting King Václav in the context of the Civil War. There's nothing nationalist about saying Václav is the good Bohemian ruler and Sigismund is a foreign interloper. What? No. There's no ideology attached to this. How dare you? But right, so that's what's going on here. That's why Kutná-Hora is in the game, is so that they can have the royal court of Wenceslaus IV. Or Václav IV. Or Václav IV, because Czech is a silly language for silly people. Themes are for 8th grade book reports. God damn it, you got me. So, that gives us a bit of context, right? So there is actually a logic here. That being said, the framing Kut Nahara as more than what it is, right? A fortified mining town that has the royal court and the accoutrements of the royal court attached to it can get pretty dicey. Especially if they're doing that to avoid having to represent Prague. The fact that Prague is still not appearing in this video game is so annoying. I understand Prague is unbelievably large and difficult to represent in any level of granularity. But you gotta. Good lord. Even though we don't have a lot of the famous landmarks yet, like the Rudolphinium, it doesn't matter. You'd still have Charles Bridge, you still have the castle, you'd still be able to have Bilahora, you'd still have the Old Town Hall, you'd still have the clock. The clock could be brand new, actually. And that'll be fun and exciting. Wonder because they knew if they wanted to do Prague, they'd have to keep most of it urban, and they want to have more of a mix with the countryside, etc. Yeah, I could see that. They kind of put themselves in a tough situation here. Because let's contrast it with a game that is in many ways visually very similar. Plague Tale Requiem. Right? Plague Tale Requiem does have quite dense, large urban environments. Like, similar size to Kut Nahara, up to a little bit bigger. But it makes those very tightly controlled set pieces, and so it doesn't have to render out the entire city. Right? That's the big thing. It doesn't have to render out the entire city. So committing to this big open world, you can walk everywhere, see anything, do anything, kind of locked them into having a real challenge in trying to represent a city that of thousands, much less tens of thousands. Do we have a good idea of what Prague was like in layout and appearance in this time? Yes, we do. I've lost track of that sentence. The road layout is almost identical in the old town of the, 16th, 17th centuries and the old town of the 15th century. There's a few changes, but there's not that many. And so a lot of the area of the old town up into modern Malostranska actually really hasn't changed that much between the city of Prague, the castle town, and the castle. Obviously our documentation gets a lot better in the 17th century, and that kind of dominates the imagination of Prague from then on. Right, the Prague of Rudolf II is the definitive Prague, and that's the Prague that everyone will expect to see in a historical rendition of Prague. This is not the Prague of Rudolf II yet. But it's not that different either. I suspect they may have tried to avoid Prague specifically because they don't want to do... They feel pressure to do the Prague of the 17th century. Right, 200 years off. Well, yeah, just about almost exactly 200 years off. And so they kind of just said, no, screw you. La la la, la la. and instead went Kutna Hora, which is interesting. I'll be curious to see what they try and do with Kutna Hora, and how they actually, what they're actually doing, because we do luckily have pretty good archaeology from it, from the period, and so that's, I'll be curious to see what they're doing, and how much they're incorporating the silver mines, the town, and the royal court. It's an odd choice. I wanted Prague. I hoped for Prague. I'm sad we don't have Prague. Anyway, let's do some reading, huh? Let me stop munching and start reading. So, Warhouse Studios has officially announced Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, the sequel to its popular RPG set in medieval Bohemia. Warhouse Studios fully unveiled the sequel at a private event last week, confirming, among other things, that it will be twice as large as the original, touting it as a behemoth of a game. Ah, yes, because horribly slow fast travel, with uninteresting travel mechanics, but bigger, was what we wanted. What we are making now is what it was supposed to be in the beginning, but we weren't able to do it because we didn't have enough resources and experiences and all that stuff. Creative director Daniel Vavra said in a presentation. We've proven the concept works, so now we can take it to another level, which is what we always wanted. To that end, Kingdom Come will be much bigger than scope, with 5 hours of cutscenes instead of 3, and a story that's, quote, much more epic. What a wild red flag. It will pick up the story where the original left off, with the game's protagonist Henry and his traveling companion Hans Capon, but where the previous game was about small nobility, Kingdom Come 2 will be about the problems of kings, hence the Royal Chancellery at Kutna Hora. Kingdom Come 2 will seek to build on the success of the original game, which drew attention for the way it mixed Elder Scrolls-like first-person exploration with a granular focus on historical detail. While it received mixed reviews from critics, who, among other issues, criticized its technical performance, managed to sell around 6 million units by now. Warhouse Studios is now 250 employees, and is owned by Embracer Group. That's tough, dude. Like other recent RPG success stories, most notably Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk 2077, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will seek to craft a highly reactive world in which players can develop Henry in any way they see fit. Henry is a young guy who's not so deeply entrenched in his already, set character traits. Lead designer Prokop Yersa explains. You can build your Henry in different ways. Among other details revealed by Warhorse, Kingdom Come 2 will include a reputation system, in which NPCs will call out Henry if he develops a reputation for drinking or thieving, and he can respond in kind. At a higher level, Henry will be able to, quote, save the world, or, quote, punish it for its sins. Oh boy, what a red flag. Implying a multitude of different paths for the young knight. Congratulations. Maybe the sheep will be easier to kill, ZX the Almighty. The sheep were bloody impossible to kill in Kingdom Come 1. Do what now? You heard me the first time. I don't feel the need to reflect that upon myself again. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 will once again utilize the Cry engine, which studio spokesperson by Stolz Schilling attributed to familiarity and established pipelines. Yeah, that makes sense. The landscape will be serene and full of secrets. If there is a Sedlet Ossuary Easter egg here, I will be mad. It will also be dangerous, of course, and the initial trailer shows plenty of period-accurate medieval combat. No, it doesn't. But Warhorse didn't delve into too many details on that front. That being said, players can expect new missile weapons like crossbows and early firearms. Beyond the countryside, Kingdom Come 2 stories mainly set in Kudenberg, also known as Kutna Hora, in Czech, a real-life silver mining city mentioned multiple times in the original game, but never shown. It figures to be one of the game's stars as a large, explorable, medieval urban center. Kudenberg is a huge step forward for us, and I will say it was the biggest challenge of the game. Art director Victor Herschel said. Lavra added, it's really big. It's even too big, in my opinion. Kunenberg may also be a change for the series in another notable way. When the original Kingdom Come Deliverance was released in 2018, it came under scrutiny for its decision to more or less leave out people of color, which Vavra attributed to a desire for historical accuracy. That was a fucking garbage move, and by the way, we hate him for it. In the 2015 move, he wrote, "Would you please explain to me what's racist about telling me the truth? There were no black people in medieval Bohemia. Period." Now, this is in Karlsteinrad, right? So this is in the chapel of Karlstein Castle, which is, you know, a whole hour to the west of Kutnahora. But, just a heads up. Now, admittedly, a depiction of a Roman saint does not an actual person of color make. But that doesn't mean you can't include this. But when asked if Warhorse of Philosophy had changed at all for the sequel, or if it would incorporate more stories like the original game's DLC, A Woman's Lot, Stolz-Schwilling told IGN, "The story and plot of Kingdom Come Deliverance has evolved. It's darker, deeper, and more cinematic, yet also crueler, with pivotal decisions and plot twists that challenge the player's conscience. Nevertheless, it retains its humor and down-to-earth approach. As mentioned already, Henry is embarking on a journey from the countryside and local quarrels to a relatively cosmopolitan city that is besieged and occupied by the invading king. Sigismund. King Sigismund, not King Václav. Naturally, in a place like this, people can expect a wide range of ethnicities and different characters that Henry will meet on his journey. This word scares me. Kunenberg is playing a very important role in Henry's story, so I can't really tell you too much for spoiler reasons, but as I mentioned before, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, Henry grew from a boy to a man, and now in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, he's growing from a man to a warrior. However, he can't do this by himself, and he needs a strong cast of friends to help him on his journey. We are trying to depict a realistic, immersive, and believable medieval world that is being reconstructed to the best of our knowledge. Naturally, to achieve that, we are not only having our own in-house historian, but we are very closely working together with universities, historians, museums, reenactors, and a group of experts from different ethnicities or religious beliefs that we are actively incorporating into development as external advisors. Cool. Cool. No. Let's not throw shade or imply lying about the consultants. I fully believe them when they say that they are getting a bunch of people, even people who disagree with them, to be advisors for this. Good advisors do not make the game anything. It just means you have good advisors. Right? The game will live or die on its own, but there are a lot of really invested, right, both in games and in history spaces, folks at Charles University, at the University of Vienna, at the Castle Museum, in Kutnahora itself. There's massive archives in the monasteries and the National Library. There's more folks in Berlin and London and America. It is not hard to find really good consultants. There is a massive reenactor movement in Prague that they worked with for the animations, for the combat. They're working with, I can almost guarantee they're working with the same people. So, I don't doubt them when they say this. It doesn't mean anything. Right? We have consultants is not a meaningful sentence. Side question, what's my favorite Ulf part? The forgeries, because they're silly. Did I play the first one? Yes, I did. I did not beat the first one because I don't have fun playing it, but there's a whole playlist over on the YouTube that has the first one, so you can check it out and go into the detail, right? I am not just hating or criticizing the game based on vibes. We broke out the map of the size of a cluster to find the room that they removed. We broke out the economic manuals to figure out how much a pretzel should actually cost. We broke out the archaeological videos to see what does a house look like. So, like, let's not say we don't take the game seriously, because we put in the hours. And it turned out at the end of the day, I just don't have a lot of fun playing it, because I'm bad at it. We also did discuss the history of taxidermy. You're not wrong. Wow, that went all over the place. Oh, the joys of video games. So, do we have a Medieval Bohemia specialist called Oleg? Yes, I do. He has even showed up in chat a few times. Dr. Jan Kramer at Charles University has shown up a few times and is just very, very lovely. Was the person who figured out that the price of pretzels was nonsense. So, well, let's take a look at the stills here. Because the trailer was so wildly edited that it was hard to find much of anything. Okay. It's Leinenkugel's Honey Weiss. Because I don't live in a spot with good breweries. It's a good beer. It's a very standard Midwestern beer. Anywho, so I already have questions. I've got some good, I've got some bad, I've got a lot of more good than bad actually. First, good. Look at that field. Flora, plants stay winning. Like, let's put back on the music actually. If we're just doing this, let's put back on the music so we've got chill vibes while I yell. Alright. So. Plants stay winning. Fantastic. Look at that willow tree in the background. Is that not the best willow you've ever seen in your life? Next thing that's really good. I really like the armor here. Like, I really like the armor that they've got here. We've got good leg armor. We've got good breastplate, good longer, like half plate. We've got gambesons under it. We've got very proper looking, tailored clothing layers underneath that. The fact that Henry's not wearing a helmet is insane. This is a good way to get stabbed in the face. This helm is from the correct period. This is a 15th century helm. Ta-da. My question, and this is just, you know, the realities of the, how tightly edited the trailer is. Why? Why are they doing this? let's see if we can find anything. Some... So I mean, this is the silly one, right? But this is instructive. So let's pull this up. Thank you. I am not a bot. So this is, if you've not seen these are fantastic. These are fantastically silly. Duels between women and men in 1400s Fechtbücher. So these are treatise manuals, basically, that describe solving marital problems by the power of violence. They are fantastic. I love them dearly. But let's not pay attention to the this. Right? I mean, it's great. We love it. Let's pay attention to that later. But first, let's pay attention to the context in which these occur. Do you see what I'm seeing in all of these manuals? I'm seeing closed off, restricted, designated proper fields of play that exist with witnesses and judges. Like, this guy's a field marshal. His job is to make sure that they don't actually go too far. Right, we're seeing specifically standardized dress, which also suggests a judicial context. We're seeing an enclosed, fenced-in, designated area that is seen by witnesses. This is how duels worked, right? It is not impossible, but exceedingly rare in this period that two people who have beef will simply have an ad hoc duel. In the 1400s, in the Holy Roman Empire, duels are a judicially sanctioned, controlled event. It is an acceptable legal recourse, which is weird, but it is done in public with witnesses in front of a judge as part of an established, codified legal procedure. What don't we see any evidence of here? All of that. We don't see any of that. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? Because obviously men are stronger, and if you put people on a level playing field, the man would win every time. So you put them in a bucket or a hole in order to level the playing field. It is deeply, deeply misogynistic, but also objectively hilarious. Makes perfect 15th century sense. Right, absolutely. A wife can take her awfully garbage piece of shit husband to court and challenge him to trial by combat. And they will honor that, and they will stick him in a hole in the ground and give them maces. Girl bosses stay winning? Girl bosses stay winning. Honestly, kinda based. Yeah. Alright, next up. The woman gets a rock with a sock so she can't block. That's true. The guy gets a shield. The woman gets Morning Star of a rock and a sock. Make it make sense. Anyway. Sadly, AC Esquire is nowhere to be found. And I rely on AC Esquire to inform me when heraldry is garbage. I have some doubts about the heraldry. I don't think it technically violates the rules. I think it just looks like it looks bad. But if someone could grab that corner there and ping AC about it, we'll have more information in the Discord whenever we get that far. As far as the rest of this goes, that's a perfectly fine contemporary building. That is what 15th century things look like. Like, I don't know what's happening in this scene, but it looks fine. It looks fine. Ah! The Kumans are back. Just in case you thought that they weren't gonna not be back. They're back. So, these groups of people are known as the either Kumans or the Kipchaks. Interchangeable. They are a Turkic-speaking people who originally are from the Caucasus, the modern country of the modern Republic of Georgia, basically. They were displaced by the Mongols in the 13th century, and when they got displaced, they moved into modern Poland, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. They were not well liked. They were not at all well liked, and in fact, had a lot of violence inflicted by them by the Polish-Lithuanian, Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth isn't much of an entity, but by the Holy Roman Empire, by the Bulgars, by the kings of Hungary, etc. They are the bad guys in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1. They are some of the most unambiguously bad guys. I really, really hope that we get more nuance about them, because, you know, for the most part, they are victims of displacement, who keep getting driven from country to country for a couple of 100 years, founding vibrant communities where they could, engaging in violence where they had to, but for the most part trying to flee literally the Mongols. Do you think they may have listened to the feedback they got and adapted, or are they doomed to repeat the same mistakes? It's a fabulous question. It could break either direction. Does the Commonwealth even exist then? Not really. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania exists. Let's see. What's the actual state breaking? Because there's some weirdness going on. Okay, so yeah. Right. Two nations have been in a personal union since the Krevo Agreement of 1385. So they are the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Commonwealth of Poland are in a personal union with each other, but it is not the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth yet. So, anyway, there's a large Kipchak population in Latvia at this time, and there's a relatively large one in Hungary, which is where they're getting recruited from. So the game flags them as Hungarian because it's the Kipchak populations in Hungary that are being recruited here. The dead guy here, who is probably also Kuman, is actually properly dressed. It's true, that clothing goes hard. This guy... Why is this guy wearing gold under his chainmail? Their helmets do go hard. Like, these helmets are sick. These helmets are so sick. I do love them dearly. It's not clear to me what sword he's using at all, honestly. But yeah. Mostly I'm just like, this Gambazin feels overwrought. This is a complaint I had with the original game, of that the clothings were very good, but they weren't necessarily contextualized with the behavior. And so, you know, we had someone dressed up in brocaded finery, splitting logs. Or not even splitting logs, planing logs. Even messier. And so I was just like, what are you doing, my guy? If you're dressed up in finery, be dressed up in finery, and do behaviors that make sense for the social condition that the clothing communicates. That's pretty fine. Maybe that's meaningful, maybe that's just an error. It's really hard to say. Pebbles. I don't care if this may be Pebbles 2.0, Pebbles. Everyone give Pebbles pets. My only complaint here is that Henry's hair is not dumb enough. The rest of this looks fantastic. Henry's hair looks very, well, fashionable and cinematic. But, 15th century hairdos suck. So, you know, let's embrace that. Ah, yes. One of the 2 female characters visible in this trailer. There were barbers back then. Yeah, there were barbers back then. That did stop their hair from being the worst thing. So, you know, the bowl cuts. You know, 15th century hair is a crime against nature, and the fact that they did not embrace that with Henry is frankly a missed opportunity. Anyway, intimacy. And then another very lovely landscape. Another very, exactly, right? The other female character is in a trauma flashback of Sigismund killing Henry's parents. Let's not miss that. The two female characters in the game, or in the trailer, are someone that Henry is making out with, and a trauma flashback. Let me find it. I believe in us. We should be able to find it. There they are. Look at that. They're so well defined. Henry inventing the concept of a fridge so fast. Yeah. So, is that a bad sign? Yes. Do I think this game is pulling that their marketing thus far is pulling in two fundamentally incompatible directions? Also, yes. Do I think this game looks fantastic? Yeah. I mean, that is a phenomenal landscape. I can't nitpick the exact details of various things because I don't know, without knowing exactly where this is supposed to be and what they are trying to find the archaeological maps for the space. We can't meaningfully nitpick that. But man, does this town look good. So yeah, ultimately I think this, well, this, and this are fundamentally incompatible. Right? Right? Yeah, Litzel, that's a totally valid take, and, you know, this is why you don't be a historian on the internet. Because I have a financial, social, and ethical pressure to all say play this game, and that's, Anyway. Right, like, you know, people are going to be asking me if I'm playing this game. For the next 8 years. I could stop streaming and people will still ask me if I play this game. It's just how it's gonna be. So let's just embrace that. We'll just embrace that. Anyway. Let's take a look at some more stuff. IGN did an interview with some of the development team after their actual announcement, so let's take a look at that, see if we can get more details, see if we can get more insight as to why they're making the choices they're making. Right. At this stage, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to talk about accuracies and inaccuracies, or what does that mean. Right now, I'm curious about motivation. Right. I'm curious about motivation. I'm curious about how that lines up with the visuals that exist. I'm curious if there's disconnects, where those come from. So, with Kingdom Come 2 being twice the size of the original game, can you talk a bit about how the sequel will fill in that extra space? How will Warhouse Studios handle traversal time and other challenges in a game as granular as this one? Theoretically, being twice the size could mean anything. Map size, number of quests, new features. I believe that answer includes a bit of everything. Yes, we have 2 maps now, each approximately the size of the first game. Yes, we will of course have more quests, cutscenes, random encounters, and the like. And yes, while we revamped some of the known features from Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, we have also added a few cool new things that the people were missing, like crossbows and the blacksmithing minigame. If you know how we handle our features, then you can be sure that everything we added is based on our desire to create deep and engaging mechanics. What about Kunenberg makes it the biggest challenge in the game? What opportunities will players be able to find there that they couldn't in the original game? Kunenberg is a huge metropolitan city of 8,000 people that at the time competed with Prague, a city of 50,000 people, that probably even outshined it in most aspects. It had probably more income per capita, but that's about all it has. Like, Prague, good. In Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, we don't spawn NPCs, everyone has their home, job, fun activities, etc. So you can imagine a city that now has hundreds of NPCs populating it. It's a challenge in and of itself. As a little fun fact, we ran out of beds for people in the city, so so some need to leave the city by night and populate the outside areas to find shelter. But generally, Kudenberg is an important silver mining city, and a big part of the CKD2 questline takes place there, so players can really look forward to a huge playground of mystery, excitement, adventure, and danger. How does Kingdom Come 2 continue Henry's journey? How does Warhorse manage the difficulty of telling a compelling story featuring a blank slate like Henry, especially within a world as reactive as this one? What does it mean to be about the problems of kings? Good questions. IGN, when do you have a good interviewer? Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 takes place right after the events of KCD1, however, it is not necessary to know the first game to fully enjoy the sequel. Don't do this! While the old-time fans will feel right at home, we put a lot of effort into adding enough info and guidance that will bring new players up to speed. But yes, KCD1 was pretty much a story about local lords and their squabbles, while in KCD2 we are moving to a bigger stage with more at stake. Henry gets thrown into the conflict of an invading king versus the people of Bohemia. Did we ignore the, like, inciting incident of the first game? Who wins? I believe Sigismund does. Yeah. Let's see. On June 1402, Václav's captured by Sigismund. This is wiki crutching. Shouts to wiki crutching, but it does check out, so, you know. On 20th November 1402, Wenceslas was forced to sign his renunciation of all his powers to Sigismund. They immediately ignore this. In October 1403, Boniface IX acknowledged the deposition of Václav and the election of Rupert as king of the Romans. As the coronation of Václav was no longer a possibility, while he was still nominally prisoner in Vienna, he was no longer under strict guard and he managed to escape. He crossed the Danube and was escorted by John II of Liechtenstein back to Bohemia, meeting his supporters in Kutná-Hora before moving on into Prague, which he entered on Christmas Day 1403. There continues to be conflict until 1409, and then there's a pope fight, and, yeah. After the death of Rupert in 1410, Václav's cousin Jobst of Moravia and Václav's brother Sigismund of Hungary were elected. Václav had never recognized his deposition and still hence claimed the kingship. Jobst died in 1411, and Václav agreed to give up the crown as long as he could keep Bohemia. This held the issue, and after 1411, Sigismund was king and then later Holy Roman Emperor. So, we are in this section, right? I assume it's going to take place between the summer of 1403 up until about Christmas, with potentially a few later things with Rupert and Jobst and Sigismund all showing up. But yeah, Sigismund wins. So, you know, this is, hooray. Anywho. Henry is still a regular dude who has to find his place in the world and quickly realizing he needs friends in order to achieve his goals and stay alive. Wasn't that the entire arc of the first game? Was finding friends that didn't suck? Anyway. As War's finally overhauled lockpicking, blah blah blah, blah blah blah. Blah 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 blah. CryEngine stuff. CryEngine stuff. CryEngine stuff. I'd love to hear some specific examples of how the world's reactivity can surprise and delight players. How far does Kingdom Come Deliverance actually take this? Reactive systems are notoriously challenging to incorporate when it comes to the sheer amount of dialogue, voice acting, etc. KCD is really all about the little things here and there, the details, the things that make you really believe that this is a living and breathing world. For instance, we don't spawn any NPCs magically behind your back. If an NPC sees you committing a crime, they will either fight you directly, depending on their stats, your looks, your reputation, so you can see a lot of RPG elements there, or the NPC will run off and call the nearest guard who will try and get you. If you happen to be gone by the time the guard arrives, the NPCs in the area will be more vigilant than they were before, and skill checks might be harder. But this goes both ways. If you're standing with a bloody weapon next to some poor victim, they might connect the crime to you. Overall, the world should offer more random counters when people shouting something at you. You can now even give a quick answer in a new chat mode that lets you interact with the world in a way more natural without locking you into a dialogue screen. We simply want you to immerse yourself in a medieval world without too many obstacles. Yeah, at the end of the first game, he's, acknowledged as... He becomes, instead of just an illegitimate, unrecognized son, he becomes an illegitimate, recognized son. And is associated with a relatively historically important set of nobles who have a decent amount of influence in the royal court. So, question mark? Certainly that still leaves a lot of room for development and change, but yeah. Anyway, aside from crossbows and early firearms, what are some of the other ways that CKD or Kingdom Come 2 overhauls its combat? It's important to say that we remain true to what KCD and what Warhorse stands for, and that is trying to depict real medieval combat. Asterisk. That being said, we made some changes to the combat system and we tried to make it more accessible while retaining the realistic, in-your-face feel. We want the combat to feel hard and heavy, but also easy to pick up. To feel the weight of your weapon and every hit you land. Take a mace, you can bash your way through the enemy lines without thinking much of tricks and combos. However, if you wish to go deep into the system, learn all the ins and outs, then longsword will be the weapon of choice, offering a more sophisticated approach. This could be said for all the features of the game. We offer them to you, use them, but if you don't want to, fine. There's no right or wrong, just your way. Cool. Kingdom Come Deliverance philosophy on historical accuracy was debated quite a bit at release, particularly in regards to its lack of people of color. Has Warhorse's approach or philosophy changed at all with Kingdom Come 2? What new historical data will Kingdom Come 2 be incorporating, if any? The story and the plot of KCD has evolved. It's darker, deeper, more cinematic, yet also crueler, with pivotal decisions and plot twists that challenge the player's conscience. Okay, so this is just that same whole sentence. That's the same, they did the whole sent chunk. There. Okay. So much for that. Thanks, Kat. Thanks, Kat Bailey, for that interview. It's helpful. It doesn't really change anything, honestly. I'm not expecting anything weird. What I am expecting is that they're going to turn around, and they're not technically lying when they say this, but that they're going to turn around and say that Hungarians count as a different ethnicity. Right, that's the cynical take on this. Right, that's when they say why they say specifically ethnicities, and they're gonna have a token Jewish character with a side quest series, almost certainly. They're gonna have Poles, Silesians, Slovaks, Moravians, Bohemians, Germans, potentially Greeks, Hungarians, Italians, and I would not be super shocked if they just stopped there. Oh, Kipchucks. I wouldn't be shocked if they just stopped there. There were Italians in Prague? I mean, we're not in Prague, we're in Kutna, but also yes. So, that actually bears some showing. I don't need the Inca road system. Thank you. Tell me you've got a map of the Imperial route. You do have one. Perfect. So this is the main Imperial roads through the Holy Roman Empire and its assistances. So, running from Rome, Florence, Venezia, Verona, across into Innsbruck, Augsburg, Nuremberg, Leipzig. Prague is right here, and so it has its own set of roads that attach to it. Because, right, you look at this and you're like, oh, it's not on the Imperial roads. You're right, it's not on the Imperial roads. Camino de Santiago. Not the Spanish routes. The international routes. The pilgrimage roads that connect Rome, Chartres, Arles, Santiago de Compostela, Canterbury, and Prague. The Camino de Santiago de Compostela runs to Prague. There is a road walk for the pilgrimage of St. James that runs through right around Prague Castle. So, this road route is bringing people from bloody everywhere to everywhere. Right? You can have Latvians coming all the way down through Poland, Silesia. They probably would end up in Görlitz and then Erfurt. But they could, if they felt like it, they could go to Prague, and then Regensburg, and then Ulm, and then Constance, and then Basel. And then wander down to Arles. And then wander down across through Andorra. And then cross all the way over to Santiago de Compostela. You could cross this entire length of Europe on pilgrimage extremely easily. And so yeah, there are Italians in Prague. And Kutna Hora is, well, just south of the road here. It's not on the road, but it's not that far off either. Isn't this cool? This defines so much. And just also, during the Renaissance, we do love to see it. Right? You can have people from Brussels or Utrecht or, come on, brain. Antwerp. That are traveling to Prague or Basel or Florence or Venice. You could have textile traders in the guilds in Lyon traveling to Prague and Kutna Hora. You could have jewelers from Bamberg or Vienne ending up in Kutna Hora. In fact, you're very likely to. There's so many places that people show up from. And going the other direction too, right? Obviously this cuts off this is just the Western European major pilgrimage roads, right? The Eastern European major pilgrimage roads are just as complex, and Prague is the heart. And Kutna Hora being in Kutna Hora being in Prague's orbit and being a major resource hub is going to show that pretty well. Matter of fact, when I say that, I'm actually referencing something specific. Like, when I say that Bohemia, or specifically Prague, is the heart of Europe, what does that read? Right there. In this depiction of the goddess Europa, as a map, literally the center of the continent. And if that isn't pretty darn cool, I don't know what is. So yeah, right? They're very... One of the things Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 does not depict in an aggressively frustrating way is meaningful acts of pilgrimage. And faith in general, but especially pilgrimage. Why? So they literally removed the place where pilgrims would stay at Sasa Monastery. Poof, gone. Like the chapter house, it's gone. It's not there. So, you know, this is... But if you envision, like, the pilgrimage routes and the roads that they create as the arteries that run through Europe, well, a lot of them coalesce in the end in Prague. And so while it is not the dominant, right, while it's not a pilgrimage site in and of itself for the most part, it is a spot that a lot of people travel through, and Kutna Hora is going to be a spot that a lot of people travel through. And that does not even consider mercenaries being hired by both Václav and Rupert and Sigismund, who could be from bloody anywhere. But they should absolutely have representation. They should have the full suite of European peoples, but they should also, there's no reason to not have people from farther afield. So, right, this is where it could break either way. Because Václav IV is the king of Bohemia. He is a contender for the throne of the Romans, i.e. the Holy Roman Empire. He is the king of the territorially largest elector body for the Holy Roman Empire. And he is on close terms with Pope Boniface IX. He is a diplomatic tour de force within the political landscape of the early 15th century Mediterranean world. And European and Mediterranean worlds. He could show... There could be people from modern Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia, Egypt, the Levant, Damascus, India, Bactria, and arguably even China. Like, probably Western China, more so than Eastern China, but like... It would be weird. It would be weird to have more... Right, really unusual to have someone from China. But also not totally impossible. It's certainly not at all impossible to have goods from China. right? Not at all impossible to have Chinese goods. Specifically, the one that I hope we see a lot of, the thing I hope we see a lot of is porcelain. Well, we're not quite at the point where it really takes off. Like, it takes until after Vasco da Gama for the porcelain exports to really take off. But there is a flow of porcelain from China to Europe in the 15th century. And every royal court wanted a bit. Not a lot. Small handfuls of pieces tops. But there's some. There should be papal representatives. It could be from anywhere, right? We could have, well, not Ibn Battuta himself. Given that he lived 100 years earlier. But you know, well, you could have people acting in diplomatic spheres for the Seljuks and then the Ottomans in ways very familiar. Or for the Mamluks and the Ottomans in ways very familiar to Ibn Battuta's travels. Exotic spices? Give. Probably not. Bavarian wedding spices. Nope. There's a very famous one that I wish I remembered. Found it. Thank you, Alex West of Medieval Indonesia, for doing this work. This is from 1475, so this is a little bit late. This is a little bit late. But, there's a lot. References to spices in surviving Czech texts. The anti-Semitic player of Ruben the Undrin seller in the 14th century Czech play Mastichkar is informative if shocking. But, you know, Indonesian commodities there. The Landshuter Hochzeit from 1475. Camphor in medieval German production. So, we'll just leave that here. We'll just leave that here. And so, pay attention, we should see spices, because there's clearly awareness, even if it's hard to reconstruct exact quantities. So yes, spices. So many spices. Anyway, let's look at a different take on this game. You know, you didn't see any of these things, did you? You didn't see any of the spices on this. Look at how great that is. Circa 1540 for just depictions of Londonese people. It's just very good. Anyway, Eurogamer, who Eurogamer is the same site, right? And Andreas Intervildi was the site that kicked off a lot of the historical accuracy capital D discourse for KCD1 back in March 2018. It's a very good article. I do highly recommend it. But the reaction to the new one. The new game is the same game with more cash. Set in 1403, KCD2 calls the story of former blacksmith Henry, his quest for revenge, on breaking into the worlds of knights and dynasties. New plot centers on millions of monarchs, etc., etc. Uh-huh. 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 The presentation suggests we'll have more control over plot outcomes. Arts design combat director Victor Bocan mentioned in the announcement video, you can save the world or help punish its sins, and there's talked of a more reactive social simulation, in which say you can tell the locals to piss off when they ask why you're walking around blind drunk with no clothes on. The bits that entice me the most, building on my faded memories of the first game, are the opportunities to engage with a profession or trade such as herbalism. The video includes some moderately wholesome footage of a mortar and pestle. Little chores like that represent the more innocent and earnest side of the experience, whose professions of historical realism appear as flawed as well professions of historical realism at large. We're presented in a world where men were still men, where peasants and women still knew their place in society, where wise lords and knights protected their people from barbaric hordes threatening a well-ordered nation from without, to whose foreign ethnicity is conveniently marked by language and customs, Andreas noted at that time. I don't see much evidence that Deliverance 2 will turn out differently. Of the approximately 2 female characters shown in the presentation, one is there to illustrate that you can seduce people, which is very much of a piece with the original games handing you an alpha male perk when you went to the brothel. Still, given the new RPG's expanded budget, perhaps they'll grant me leeway to reinvent Henry as a mild-mannered traveling brewer who faints at the sight of skin. Eurogamer does not pull its punches, and we do love it dearly. We do love it dearly. And that is, to me, one of the things that stands out as well. The marketing for this game, nope, this one, leans really heavily on battles. Hey look, guy with sword. Hey look, guy with gun and arrows and probably a sword. Hey look, guy with gun and 1, 2, 3, 4 guys with swords. Hey look, guys with swords. Hey look, guys with lances. Hey look, guys with bows. The title screen. Lover. Yep, doesn't that... Doesn't that just sum up the game? Fight, 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 fight. Talk about fighting. Fight. Lover. All right. Christ's sake. I wasn't realizing that we were going to roast the game that hard. But, I can only react to what the trailer gives me, and what the trailer gives me is 8 different fight scenes, and then the word lover. So, you know. As I said, who is it? As Edwin Evans Thurwell at Eurogamer said, it looks like it's more of the same game, but they have more money now. And that's interesting. Because we were talking about this in the Discord right before. Magistress, I know you mentioned this, and so I'm going to call you out on this. Let's actually do a poll with this. You know? I have the power. Create a new poll. Alright, poll is live. The question is, does Kingdom Come Deliverance feel current? You can define that however you want. But if you've been watching the channel for any length of time, like, there have been a lot of historical games that have come out since 2018. And I say a lot. Like, an order of magnitude more than what we have played, and I have played the most of any person on who makes content online. And I will stand by that take. Does Kingdom Come Deliverance feel recent? Does it feel like a modern historical game? There's so many people watching right now. Get those votes in. Get those votes in. Alright, of the 8 votes cast, 6 people said no. 2 people said yes. So, if you did not get your vote in but you have strong opinions, say something. Say something in chat. Jakista, it feels like a 2010 Bethesda game in 2024. Uh-huh. But right, it feels a little bit old, right? In the same way that, right, so that Skyrim feels a little bit old. Or Dragon's Dogma 2, actually, from what I've heard, feels in many ways pretty old. That can be a deliberate choice, absolutely. But right, modern open worlds have a pretty set existence. Thanks, Ubisoft. We hate it here. But it's design-wise, it feels very friction-filled. Friction-filled doesn't mean a bad thing, but its overall presentation, priorities, structure, what does it think is important? Kingdom Come Deliverance feels to me a lot like the last generation of big-budget games. Because, right, same question, informal poll this time, not actually a poll. Nah, screw it, actual poll. Same question, but Assassin's Creed Origins. Right? Same question, but for Assassin's Creed Origins. Again, get those votes in. That poll is live now. Get those votes in. Come on. There's only 3 people who have voted right now. I believe in you all. I believe in you all. What do you mean I was fishing for these answers? That being said, you did give me the answer I wanted. So if you want to screw me over, get your votes in. Because otherwise you're proving my point very well. Alright, of the 9 votes cast, 5 of you said Assassin's Creed Origins feels current compared to 4 people who didn't. Assassin's Creed Origins is older than Kingdom Come Deliverance. Right? So, personally never got that this game's design is outdated. See, I think it's not. There's some design things. Wait, what? No, wait, yeah. AC Origins is 2017. And Kingdom Come Deliverance is 2018. Mm-hmm. Right? So Peter, what I mean when I say current, and I don't mean to say that this is what everyone means, is that the focus of the narrative and the focus of like what is important in the world, what are we devoting resources towards, feels much more in line with games from, 2010 to 2013, maybe 2015, and has much less in common, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 has much more in common with games from like 2012 to 2015 than it does from games from 2017 to 2024. And it's not even politics and ideology. That's what chat's harping on, and I get it. I get it. But a focus on incredibly deep, realistically rendered environments where you can walk around and talk to everyone, and everyone has a personality, and everyone has a social relationship, is Xenoblade Chronicles. And this story where you are, well, specifically, where you are interacting with these small nobles and engaging with their petty struggles, and through your actions as a random citizen who may or may not have specialness that makes them immune to most of the social bullshit that is otherwise going on in this world. That's Skyrim. That's just Skyrim. Like, the Dragonborn is immune to the social bullshit of the world of Skyrim. In a way that no one else gets to be. And Henry, even though Warhorse very much was trying to say, no, he's a random person who is ingrained in the social structures, still gets to sneak out by being secretly of noble blood. Right? You secretly, in a world of peasants and freemen and like 6 nobles, you get to secretly be one of the 6. And so that makes you immune to a lot of nonsense and lets you navigate up and down the chain in ways that historical peasantry did not have available to them. And it means you don't have to engage in the ways that historical peasants did have available to them. Right? Because the main noble that you interact with in KCD1 is your dad. You don't know it, but he knows it, and so he just forgives you horrible, horrible faux pas literally constantly. In a way that no one else in the game gets to. And so even though it tries to be a backlash to hero narratives of the 2010 to 2013 era, structurally, quest-wise, how you navigate the world, and the tools that you have available to do stuff, is very 2012. Hey Secondit, we are talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which got announced today. And I have opinions. Now here's the thing. In 2018, you can get away with a 2012 feeling game, right? I mean, yeah, you're, a year out of date from the revolution in open world gaming. Like, you missed it by a year already, but You only missed it by a year. That's not so bad. We feel okay about that. But, right, 2017 marks the change point. Let me hit you with 3 games that really change open world game philosophies that all came out in 2017. I already said one of them. Assassin's Creed Origins. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Number 3. Nier Automata. Game narratives simply, especially in open world games, simply feel different. The mechanical focus and the way you do immersion gameplay really starts to shift. The idea of what narratives are you telling and how do you, the character, interact with the world space starts to shift. And the narrative focus of the historical world space starts to shift. And so to see, you feel like the game mechanics of KCD1 were heavily clunky for the sake of being clunky in a way that feels very not modern? Absolutely. Right, the term I've seen used a lot with, Dragon's Dogma 2 discourse is friction. And, right, friction is not a bad thing. Let me reiterate that, right? Just because game mechanics are not accessible and they resist you trying to master them, that doesn't make it bad design. Right? Notably, as much as I don't like KCD's combat, I haven't talked about the combat, because the combat achieved what the combat wanted to do. I bounced off of it. Wasn't for me, but I think the combat mechanics for KCD really did what the combat mechanics were interested in doing. Successfully. Fabulous. Hooray. I think, the hunting mechanics did not achieve what they were trying to do. I think the economic mechanics did not achieve what they were trying to do. Exactly. I really actually do like what they've said about the reputation system so far. That's a really promising system. I think that's a system that actually makes a lot of sense for a more modern take on it all. Where, the way you behave is not just a number, right? You don't just improve numbers and then you get better at it because you did numbers. But no, you can actually have positives and negatives, and you gain a reputation, and people know that guy. Right? You're not just a guy that people magically know about, but it's actually latching onto things you have done, and you become that guy. That guy over there. The town drunk. Or the guy that saved my cousin's friend's schoolmate. And so tying it into like a deed system, right, tying a reputation and a deed system together is potentially really exciting. The other thing that I hope they do that I think would really modernize it, that I don't know if they're going to do, but that I think they should try to do, is fail forward, right? Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 has a very outdated feeling where sometimes you just get stat checked. Right, that's when I stopped playing the game, was at a stat check. Where if I want to progress the main story, I simply must be better at combat. I must have better armor, I must have a better weapon, I must have higher stats. Because otherwise I will lose, and there is nothing I can actually do mechanically to move the story forward. I just die. Poof and rip. Because there's a cutscene forced ambush. If your combat stats aren't good enough, you just lose. Poof. And the main story is well behind that. So, having more ways that losses in combat don't just result in you dying, and a more robust set of ways to progress the story that are not just this person is going to sit forever on this bench until you have the stats to survive the ambush she's leading you into. I mean, Valheim is also kind of like that, but you don't have a problem with it in Valheim. Valheim doesn't lock narrative. Well, okay. Valheim doesn't have narrative to lock in the same way. Right, the narrative is the survival mechanics and the ability to pass the stat check. Hey, Sonia. Exactly. So, those would be two things I think would really modernize some of the design. Though I agree, right, who was it? My name is you. You've seen a lot of games try reputation systems and it never feels smooth. I absolutely agree. I think it's a thing that's an ideal from tabletop role-playing games that video games really want to do, that video games still really struggle to do. So, I certainly agree that that's tough. But it certainly is better than just, you know, you get plastered, the totally fake priest ditches you, and you have to blasphemously impersonate a priest to give a sermon. And somehow everyone in Sazava doesn't think that you're an apostate who's going to go to hell after you accomplish these facts. It's not like you were in disguise. Oh, we are talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which got announced today. And given that I am the internet's most qualified Kingdom Come Deliverance hater, we are talking about it so much. But right, I don't find that approach to socialization, where you were able to do wild and wacky hijinks with no social consequence, including committing blasphemy, including committing soul-threatening acts of blasphemy, a reputation system I think is very needed. You know, Sonia, the stuff I've been seeing on Twitter sounds like you're doing fun, interesting stuff. Like, go. That's better than listening to me rant. Yeah, you laughed and had fun, but it's so out of left field, right? Right, I didn't have fun because I'm in too deep. I'm in way too deep. When I'm the guy who's breaking out the archaeology articles in order to figure out what does 15th century Bohemian rural house archaeology look like, you know, you're in too deep. There's no possible way to look at that and not go like, what the fuck just happened? And not in a fun way. In a, is this even okay? Like, is this If someone did this IRL, would they survive the night? Or would they be excommunicated from afar just because news travels that fast? Yeah. And yes, thank you to the anonymous gifter for gifting Son of the Sea. That's up. Enjoy your medieval emotes. They're very good. You have access to owls. They are the best owls. So. Look at them. Look at them go. Chat, I've not tried this. What happens if you squish the owl? Oh, Peter, that was just modern. That's late 19th century. Chat, please hold. I need to see how this works. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Look at that. Yep. Yup. Look at it. It's so flat. So chat, you can modify emotes for just 900 channel points. You can modify a single emote and have that for the next 24 hours. You can do it right now. You can squish that owl. Right, my name is you. So, social verisimilitude, to me, given the, you know, branding of the channel, matters if the game claims that it's being historically accurate. Right, if it's not claiming it, and it has good, fun, interesting social mechanics that have nothing to do with anything. Fabulous. Let's rock out. Look at it. It's so squished. If the game claims it's creating an authentic, believable, historical world. Peter, you're so smart. Hang on. What if Smug Bathonk? Oh my god! Not the medical mask! What if Smug Bathonk? Ah, that doesn't work quite as well. Dang. It's good. But it's not quite as good. We need the squimsh. You can squimsh them yourself. It's 900 channel points per squish. It's so very good. Okay, where were we? Sorry, I got distracted by flat medical. That man's arm has disappeared. So you don't like KCD1? I don't. No. It has really high highs. Like the best moments of the game are wandering around on pebbles, enjoying the natural landscapes and like environment, world building, like world details and material culture of medieval Bohemia. It does that really well. It does that incredibly well. But a lot of the details of its simulation, Peter. Ah, I don't have... Oh no, I don't have the other one available. Wait, where did it go? There it is. Him. I can't modify him. None of you have access to him, by the way. He's mine. Mine as well. But yeah. Right? As a material culture compilation of 15th century Bohemia, Kingdom Come Deliverance rules. Most of its understanding of medieval culture and society and the human element of it, I think really flags. It's simultaneously a case of they know so much, and they want you to know they know so much. And then they don't piece it together in a way that adds up to something greater than the sum of its parts. And so the whole thing to me ends up feeling like it's superficial. Like they didn't transfer the wealth of research they did into an actual, well, to use a bunch of jargon, psychosocial world. This is not a world that real people inhabited and engage with in believable ways. This is a world in which a very bunch of very sophistically programmed dolls are running around getting poked. And so they don't have, you know, I don't know. I didn't walk away feeling like most of the characters that were not named had relationships. That they actually, like, had intention behind what they were doing. That they engaged in the world in a believable way. The charcoal... Exactly, the first hour is fantastic. The first hour manages to dodge all of that. It's just once the world opens up and you start kind of moving through environments rather than being really embedded in one, the fact that you are moving through environments really starts to stand out. Like, for instance, right, this is also a case where I think, you know, I played it wrong. I played it somewhat intentionally wrong, but I played it wrong. Mantressa loves to roast me for my hunting ability, skills. I am the greatest hunter the world has ever seen. If you didn't watch it, it took me 35 minutes to kill enough rabbits because I had to physically run them down with an axe. Because the archery sucked so bad and I ran out of arrows. The coal burners, whose camp I ran through 4 times, did not react. Right, there are 2 of them. There's charcoal burners. That's a real medieval job. That's a very important medieval job. The people who engage in that are often socially ostracized, socially marginal, often very poor, will potentially engage in poaching or other dubiously illicit things alongside charcoal burning, but they provide a really important job providing fuel for the town, whatever community they're closest to, or communities they're closest to. You can, they sell charcoal to apothecaries for medicinal and artistic purposes. They do all sorts of stuff. they're also notoriously in medieval storytelling horrible gossips. They did not react to me running through, waving an axe over my head, chasing a rabbit 3 times. It's hard for me to feel like those are real people anymore, right? It's just really hard for me to feel, unless if you attack one of them and then suddenly they're professionally trained sword fighters. Right, the moment your sword, like if I miss swing and hit one of them, yeah, that would hurt like hell. It's a problem. But they'd immediately pull out weaponry, and they'd be perfect, like, textbook out of a manual guards. And it's like, where did they come? You're a charcoal burner. You can't afford a weapon. It would be more acceptable if they didn't market the real historical immersion of it. Absolutely, and I will never regret roasting them. Is that where the gossipy reputation, where Václav and Smokey gossiping from comes from? Yes. Because people who are otherwise also socially marginal, Roma people, itinerants, drunkards, etc. Right, the charcoal burners are probably the community that they get exiled to, and they still want to be within periphery of the community. But yes, that is why they're horrible gossips. That is the actual reputation that they had. Salute to Václav. True. But yeah, I mean, and that is the other thing. Right? The thing that's been lurking in the background is the last 3 years or so have been really, really, really good for history games. And history games as a whole have started to understand environments in a very different way. Right? That medieval or that a historical group's material culture informs how they react to situations. What are their beliefs? What motivates them? What drives them? And really make a lot of that happen. Right? We just finished the Thaumaturge. Think about how deeply embedded in their social reality, like, all the characters are in that game. And many of you have a good night. Same with Last Train Home. Same with Pentiment, obviously. Obviously. But also kind of same with God of War Ragnarok and God of War 2018. And also kind of same. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Spotify. You had a thought. I'm waiting. Do you think we move more towards communal-focused storytelling because of the pandemic? I think the shift happened before the pandemic. I think the shift was starting in 2017, right? But I think, at least for role-playing games, a really dominant force is Disco Elysium. Right, in terms of... Right, there's already been a shift. Right? God of War 2018 is from 2018. And that's already thinking a lot about, inherited generational trauma, inherited responsibilities, inherited culture, and what happens as those all sort of get into tension with each other. Right, so that shift is already happening in 2018. It's already happening in Assassin's Creed Origins, where Assassin's Creed Origins, yes, still has a lot of, Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, etc., but also has a lot more focus than Syndicate and Unity did on culture spaces, and telling small stories about that are really culturally grounded in a way that things in Syndicate weren't as much. And so there's already, a shift happening in 2016, 2017. That shift, I think, picks up in 2019, and we're only really seeing the consequences of Disco Elysium in the last year or two. Right, because even trying to say, AC Origins is super current, right? A lot of people said no. And I don't blame them for that. Like, Assassin's Creed Origins does not feel that current. In a lot of ways. Even though Assassin's Creed, with the arguable exception of Mirage, but really not that much of an exception of Mirage, still very much is following in the template, its refinements on the template that AC Origins set. We'll see if Red breaks the mold at all. I doubt it will. But there's a lot more focus on interiority. Right? In the idea of people's emotional realities being representable in video games, and that being just actively a good thing. Right? I mean, I'm really curious to see what Hellblade does. I am so curious to see what Hellblade does. And so, like, as the medium has just grown up, right? I mean, I think it's hard to quantify exactly what the pandemic did yet, but as the medium has sort of grown up, and we hit the backlash to the backlash of the Dark Riddies, right? We had the bright, cheerful 4 kids, and then we have the kid, they turn around, they do the Dark Riddy stuff, and that still exists. That is an ongoing thing. But there's also, I think, an increasing subset of people who are like, wait, no. That isn't a dichotomy. Let's tell complex, nuanced, difficult stories full of ultimately well-intentioned people. And, right, that's a really interesting space to explore culturally. But yeah, Steven Universe is... I mean, while it's easy to meme on it as an influence, I think it is an influence. Just generally, I think modern media just feels in a very different spot than 2012 media did, right? Some of the same things that worked in 2012 still work now. But there's also a lot more diversity happening. A lot more people being able to tell stories that are actually embedded in their own culture. And stories by people who get it. Right. That is my biggest fear for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, is that Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 did not persuade me that the developers actually understand the 15th century. They were told what the 15th century is like, but they didn't necessarily understand the 15th century. Right. Chat, do you remember how long is Kingdom Come Deliverance's encyclopedia? Do you remember that? Where hygiene and bathing was not up to scratch, the public baths were on the rise. Public baths in Central Europe appear from about the 12th century. There were baths in quite literally every town, and not in small numbers. Sometimes down without 3 or 4 bathhouses. Here people had access to hot water for bathing or steam baths. In those times, steam was produced by pouring water onto heated bars around a storm. Body cleanliness was in the care of male and female bath assistants. Full body washing was done in bathtubs, coopered wooden vats, and tanks. In Bohemia, there were baths in operation since the early Middle Ages, and their numbers rose steadily. There were 47 public baths in Prague in the second half of the 14th century, and by the 15th century, the baths were not only attended by the well-to-do, but also by poorer classes. There was even a regulation that the bathkeepers had to open their doors once a quarter to the poor and to students. Bathhouses typically belonged to the municipality and were leased to bathkeepers. In addition to municipal and private baths, there were bathhouses in the houses of nobility and wealthy townspeople. In the 13th and 14th century, the bathhouses were very much associated with prostitution. In the 13th century particularly, bathhouse prostitution became widespread, and there was scarcely any that did not provide sexual services. In the richer urban baths, there would also be pharmacists, massage therapists, stokers, and cleaners. In the villages, the bathhouse keeper had to do all the jobs himself. Were you in debate club? What gave it away? I wasn't good at it because it turns out I ramble too much. But I can words fast. That still took me over a minute. Right, with me full on just machine gun word speed. That still took me over a minute to read. I gotta check. Hang on, I'm pulling up Word. I gotta check how many words this thing actually is. 270. You know, that's not as bad as I had thought. But in a video game? Also, this doesn't tell me anything about how people interacted with the baths. Right? This tells me 0 things about how people interacted with the baths. What happened in there? Are people exchanging gossip? Is a bathhouse keeper a socially respected job? Is business conducted there? What soap are they using? Is this a family outing? Exactly. Do you go to the bath and then go do other stuff while you're in town? Do you make a day of this? This entry tells you none of that. Now, what was it? Sasau Monastery, I think it was, right? Yeah, this is another one. This is about 300 words long. Right, this is like 300 words long. telling us about the first half of the 11th, telling us about the 11th century. And the 11th century. And then just quietly brush over the fact that all of this is irrelevant to the time period of the game. After the expulsion of the old Church Slavonic monk from Sasau, the monastery was taken over by Latinist monks from Brevnov. What did they believe? What did they believe, game? How do people go about their day in an Old Church Slavonic rite versus a Latin rite? How does it interact with the town? What do they grow in the gardens? Do they have their own land? Are they getting food from there? Like, what's life like? I don't know, here's a pile of facts. Here's 300 words worth of facts. This is a much better length, by the way. I have no complaints with this length. That's 120 words? 130 words? Let's see how close I am. 107. 107. But here's the town. Here's a fact about the origin and how the town's laid out. Here's what's happening in the time period of the game. And then another nice detail about how we get from the time period of the game to the present. Another one that is long. Another one that's long. And jargony. Who the fuck uses Genius Loci in a game encyclopedia? A completely untranslated Latin jargon term. Hey chat, wave at me if you know what Genius Loci means, without Googling it. There's no shade here. Waves? Good. Feel like I do, but you can't recall. I'm saying awfully for you waving. I'm a museum curator. It is my job to be able to tell stories efficiently. I feel like I have qualifications to criticize this. This isn't how you write labels. This is the Civilopedia. This is another way where the game feels really out of date. Well, that equals smart, right? This might be a cultural thing. It is. Some of it is definitely a cultural thing, right? Germans do love their words. But like it's not. Doesn't really say a lot, does it? This is not a pithy takeaway that really leaves me walking away feeling like I know the city. It's just kind of... Right. But this is a form of technical writing, right? So yes, this is how a lot of people get taught to write in school. Totally fine. This is how I was taught to write in high school. Right, this is... But museum and encyclopedia writing is a technical writing. Remember that French artist who wrote the blurb for one of the art museums we checked out? Oh, fuck. Yup. I blocked it from my mind. I had blocked it from my mind. But right, I mean, this is a case where what Pentiment did was so genius. Because it is a non-disruptive, 2-second, here is the definition you need to be able to engage with the game, and then let the game do the legwork. Right? Let the game do the legwork. That you will have people who just talk about tassing, and the game spends a lot of runtime thinking about the history of tassing at various moments. This doesn't do that, right? This is a highly disrupted, right? You have to hit, if you don't catch the pop-up right when it shows up, you have to enter a menu, click on the codex button, click on the category of codex, and click on the item. 4 clicks, in which you are then presented with 300 words of text. 300 words takes, well, 5 words a second. So, wow. I can't count. Full minute? Full minute to read. If it's complicated technical or complicated syntactically or complicated linguistically, add another 30 seconds. So now you're looking at 4 clicks and 90 seconds of commitment where you don't get to play the game. And this information is never going to benefit you. I hate this codex. This is Civilopedia levels of bad codex writing. I really hope they find a better way to engage with the codex in this. It's a great counterpoint, Raptorus. Because AC Mirage also has very long codex entries. Right, AC Mirage has very long codex entries. In many ways, it has codex entries you have to actually spend quite a few clicks in order to get to. But they're written so much more compellingly. I mean, you do that, but you're also the type of person who would stop literally everything to read incomprehensible metaphysics lore. Valid. We respect you for it. I'm usually that person. But I don't want to read a wiki. Right? Like, AC Mirage's ones felt like museum wall labels. This feels like a Wikipedia entry. Right? Is that a reasonable distinction? Is that Gothic character? I mean, yeah, vibes. Character. So maybe the issues in the length is that so dry it's being made into a hardtack? Yeah. Yeah. It's odd. It's odd. Probably written in Czech. TBH, you don't think the average gamer stops playing to recode entries even if it's interesting? Oh, they absolutely don't. But there is a point to this. Right? How much of the historical labor of medieval Bohemia in Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 is carried by the codex entries? No, you read them on the wiki after finishing the game. Well, valid, understandable, we love that. There is a lot of detail in these that is not in the rest of the game. Right? There's a lot of detail here that is not in the rest of the game. It's not... Now that to me says it's not relevant detail. But if we're trying to be as comprehensive as possible, that's just a lot of history that's not showing up in anywhere else in the game except the codex. So you know, the codex doesn't gel. It's a chance to talk about how many facts there are. But I think that's illustrative of the problem, right? My argument is that Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, at that time, Warhorse did not understand how to compile facts in a way that add up to something more than a bundle of facts. And that really showed through in a lot of the creative choices in how they made the historical game space. Right? Obsidian has been ahead of this for a very long time. Right? Tyranny, Deadfire, Pentiment, they're cooking. They're absolutely smoking them. They're the best in the business at writing good codexes. And it's not close. And I don't expect everyone to get Obsidian levels of good. Yes, more games should be doing that. Josh Scheuer, you clearly are the hero the games industry deserves. Please go save everyone from their own better instincts. But at the same time, I don't expect everyone to do what Obsidian does. Because they've invested a lot of staff talent into refining that technology and that skill. Right, that writer expertise and that technical expertise to make both of those function. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone's going to be able to do that, and that's okay. There are other successful ways of doing this. For instance, now this might just be my personal biases speaking, but chat, who remembers when we played 1 day worth of Disco Elysium? Or if you've played Disco Elysium, how many of you listened into the very intriguing art historical digression about a statue? They spent so much time describing that statue in universe from the perspective of the voices inside your head. Is that a codex system? No. Is it constructing a ton of historical background and context that someone may or may not know? Yeah. Yeah, it is. Will that ever matter again? It might not. But right? That is another egregiously high effort but intriguing way of integrating some of this information. My point is, ultimately though, that in 2018, I don't know that Warhorse knew how to turn bundles of facts into really meaningful simulations. From what I've seen, right from this trailer and from the interview, I'm not persuaded that they have learned in the last 6 years. And that worries me big time. Especially if the direction they move, you know, is bundles of facts punctuated by more, quote, cinematic structures. Now, Kingdom Come Deliverance 1 cribs really heavily from movies. Kingdom Come Deliverance 1, shot for shot, recreates a scene from Proceed Vashem. Proti Vashem? One of those. Proti Shem. Yes. Shot for shot. So, you know, they're already pretty darn cinematic. If they're pulling more in that direction and saying, oh yes, more violence, more sex equals more darker, more complex. Hey, that rhymes. While preserving a visual language defined in 1950s Czech films. That's a combination that has a long road off a short pier. Because I think that just fundamentally, oh, it's absolutely still dated. Oh. Yes. But I think that's ultimately something that's going to make it harder, make the codex more important to hold everything together, and make the ability to create a simulation that holds together despite the darkness really, really important. And I'm not sure they're good enough at making simulations. Not historical ones, anyway. And that's the trailer did not disabuse me of that notion. And I'd be thrilled if I'm wrong. And I don't think I will be. I'm unfortunately not wrong often enough to feel like I'm misreading this one. I don't have a lot of doubts on this. I think that's just what's going to happen. They're difficult. This is probably the second hardest type of game to make a really successful historical world out of. The hardest is, of course, the MMO. This is probably the second hardest, though. And so, like, failing it is not a big old catastrophe. I don't blame someone if it doesn't succeed. I don't think that's, oh no, how dare they. It's tough. But they're continuing to say they have really big ambitions. And there are some fundamental issues that they have to sort out if I think they want their simulation to hold together as it grows. And also, I really hope Daniel Vavra has gotten, you know, less trash since 2018. People can grow, people can change. I don't like who Daniel Vavra was in 2018. Hopefully he's, changed his beliefs a bit. I mean, so that's 2 hours and 45 minutes of talking about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Chad, is that a noble introduction or noble representation of the discourse? Did we succeed? Have we discoursed? The discourse has run its course. Of course. To be a part of the internet horse race. I almost had it. So, yeah. I mean, 2.5 hours out of a 2-minute trailer? I think we succeeded. But we did a lot of history. We looked at medieval pilgrimage roads. We got some spicy hot tips about how to write efficiently and clearly for a general audience. We looked at the town of Kutna, what makes it important, what makes it interesting, what makes it not as big as and cool as Prague. We looked at depictions of Black Saints in Bohemia. We looked at the political situation of the 1400s. We looked at medieval pilgrimage roads. And yeah, that's a lot of topics. That's a lot of topics to talk about in a 2-minute trailer. Oh, and we did a little bit of material culture analysis. Fabulous. Alright. So, what else is going on? What else is going on in the world, chat? We've not looked at the games industry in a few minutes to see how it exploded. Hades 2? I don't really have anything to say about it. It looks like it's more Hades. We awarded a tiny clap. When it's in actual early access, we'll keep an eye on it. It's not even in early access yet, though. Do you say that like Hades 1 didn't have a lot of aggressively modern aesthetics? Now they've just added Witchy to the pile. It's just more Hades. Let's see, what else is happening? Felvedek. I did mention Felvedek. Let me pull up the page for Felvedek. You make a great point. Felvedek looks so crunchy. Look at this. Look at this game. This game's so crunchy. Look at him go. Alright, Son of the Sea. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll be playing Tales of Kindera Zhao, Abu Bakr Salim's new game, which looks sick. As soon as that comes out, so look forward to that. There was that Dinosaur Viking game, though. Yes, there was. A hot air balloon? In the 15th century? I have questions. But yeah, find out what unlikely events take place in this alternate history region of the Slovak Highlands. This land is ravaged by Hussite pillagers and Ottoman spies, while surreal horrors dwell in the dark. It's now up to Pavel, a fair knight with alcohol problems, to gather a party and stop those who oppose our kingdom. Traverse the hand-painted world to explore castles, settlements, dungeons, unveil secret doors, etc. Meeting Catholics, Hussites, or even more sinister folk. It's about 2 to 3 hours long. That could be a fun one. Yeah. That could be a fun one. 3 hours, nice, short, sweet. Rock and roll. That man has a kettle helm and a mouth. Oh, that's horrifying. 10 out of 10. Also, true. Never Alone 2. Another game that's coming out. Nuna and Fox intensify. So if you've never heard about Never Alone, Never Alone is something real special. I credit it really heavily as being the first example of indigenous people making games about their own culture as a new form of storytelling and education and advocacy. It came out in 2014 and is developed by an Inupiat team with consultation from several fairly high-profile game dev consultants. And it's got a sequel. It's got a sequel. If there's anything like big before it, I've not found it. Like, this game is just Never Alone ruled. And we get more of it. So that's great. Let's see. Hey, we got more squishy guys. Skulled against the Black Priory. Whose is this? What is that? Whose is this? Oh, that's crunchy. Oh, look at that crunch. Oh, look at that crunch. Huh. That's what I'm here for. Hello, Necromancer. Look, I shamelessly steal my list of weird indie games from other people. If I can be the source of weird indie games that people can steal from, I'm thrilled. Absolutely thrilled. else is... I felt like there was more stuff. Now I have to check like all the Discord channels to see who announced which thing got put where. Yeah. I don't think there's more. Yeah. I don't have anything else right now. Elden Ring DLC coming up. Yep. Tales of Kindera Zao comes out next week. Which is wild. Hellblade 2's in May. We're waiting for details about the next Assassin's Creed game. Broken Roads? I've not had that on my radar at all. What's happening? Australian Outback XCOM survival game? Okay, but like, that's jargon. No, it's AC Red. Sengoku, Japan. Alex Supreme. No, that's not history, that's just RPG. History games. History news. History capital D discourse. Look. I still have to see the new Shogun show. So I know nothing about the Shogun show. But then again, I also am well behind on my promise of looking at Kurosawa films. So, you know. There's that. I mean, there's the usual people. Oh, that's what I was thinking of. If you did not hear, if you did not see, there was a pretty big thing in archaeology worlds. And that is that, you know, noted, this server has been personally victimized by Graham Hancock, and very lovely archaeologist Flint Dibble went on the Joe Rogan podcast together. Yeah, you catch up on the whole thing. Cursed? No. Y'all. Flint is good people. Like, Flint is fundamentally deeply good people. And makes videos. Online. Makes videos. And so, you know, got to talk really thoughtfully and passionately and with a lot of prep work about good archaeology. Which is, pretty darn cool. Right, I mean, yes, Gerbo has the, you know, platform of existence and who the debate was against, but had some really interesting thoughts on, like, has a lot of really interesting logic as to why we went out doing it. Entering the fray. So this is written by Flint Dibble about why he did this, because it's interesting. I agreed to discuss archaeology with pseudo-archaeologist Graham Hancock on the mega-popular but controversial podcast The Joe Rogan Experience. Celebrity author Hancock has made a fortune writing sensationalized books that claim a lost Ice Age civilization once existed without any direct evidence for this society. I am an archaeologist, a scientist who uses the remains of objects, structures, and other traces of human activity to reconstruct how past peoples lived. Some Rogan fans will surely dismiss my remarks as symptoms of a woke mind virus, which apparently infects anyone who relies on evidence, experts, and the scientific method to form conclusions. Meanwhile, some colleagues will call me foolish, upon playing into the hands of pseudoscientists. Still, I'm appearing because Rogan's podcast draws an audience in the tens of millions. If scholars want to curb the spread of misinformation, we need to stop talking amongst ourselves or to audiences of like-minded people. But reaching out to those outside my echo chamber demands more than my archaeological expertise. To approach engagements like the Joe Rogan Experience, I and other scholars must arm ourselves with science communication strategies which research has shown can debunk misinformation in the current fake news environment. How I present evidence matters as much as what I present. Milo Mini Minuteman did just have a talk about the pseudo-archaeology pipeline at Virginia Tech, which is also on YouTube, so we love to see that too. But this has occurred after that. After the release of Hancock's 2022 Netflix series Ancient Apocalypse, archaeologists contested and condemned his claims through the forms of an open letter, news articles, op-eds, social media, and blog posts. Hancock invited a direct debate. In January 2023, Hancock and I agreed to sit down together on Rogan's podcast. The very next day, I got a phone call. Unfortunately, Flint Dibble had cancer. He is once again in remission, blessedly. But it got postponed due to treatments. Now, more than 1 year later, it is happening. I traveled to Rogan's studio in Austin, Texas to share real scientific archaeology with a wide audience. Rogan's reach is enormous. According to a recent assessment, he boasts around 16 million YouTube subscribers, 19 million Instagram followers, and 15 million Spotify followers, 3 times the streaming service's next most popular podcast. Surveys have found these listeners are over 70% male, mostly between the ages of 18 and 34, and lean politically conservative. I believe some listeners do have an interest in the past and will come with open minds. But there are compelling reasons to avoid sharing sound waves with science deniers. For example, physician and scientist Peter Hodes refused to appear on Rogan's podcast with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a vocal opponent of vaccines and third-party candidate in the 2024 US presidential election, because we hate it here. To Hodes, such a debate would seem to legitimize anti-vaccine views. However, Rogan has interviewed many scientists on his podcast, just not at the same time as Kennedy. Pseudoscience archaeology's popularity. I'm not debating vaccines. I'm distinguishing archaeology from mythology. Pseudo-archaeology, or alternative history, draws major attention and casts itself as legitimate. Hancock's books consistently rank as bestsellers on Amazon in the subcategory of archaeology, and Ancient Apocalypse was one of Netflix's most popular docuseries. Beyond Hancock, Ancient Aliens dominates the History Channel, YouTube, TikTok, and other social media abound with archaeology-themed accounts describing giants, lizard people, mud floods, fake civilizations, and claims that the Roman Empire didn't exist. Many people buy it. Based on a recent survey by Chapman University scholars, nearly 50% of people in the US believe in lost civilizations or ancient aliens. On Google Books and Gramviewer, which counts words in English language books, not on social media, the mythical sunken city Atlantis ranks higher than terms related to other conspiracy theories including astrology, UFO, JFK, creationism, alpha male, or ancient aliens. Atlantis is also mentioned more than the famous archaeological sites Pompeii, the Sphinx, and Stonehenge, and ancient historical figures such as Alexander the Great. That's tough. Meanwhile, it seems few people know what archaeologists actually do. K-12 schools in the US rarely cover the field. Some universities are defunding and dismantling programs in archaeology, history, anthro, art history, ancient languages, and classical studies. Debating whether to appear. I'm compelled to do something, which is why I agreed to go on the podcast, but I don't enter Rogan's studio naively. A decade ago, science communicator Bill Nye publicly debated creationist Ken Ham. Some pundits called it a mistake. Ham used the spectacle to raise funds for his creation museum. But in 2020, for the first time since polls began tracking people's views on evolution, a majority in the US accepted evolution, agreeing with the statement, human beings, as we know them today, developed from earlier species of animals. For Gen Zers and millennials like me, the Nye-Ham debate provided real information in an accessible and entertaining way. I remember watching it and thinking about the power of stratigraphy, accumulated layers of soil and rock for visualizing Earth's deep history. Now I face a similar dilemma. The podcast will generate buzz for Hancock and Rogan, but unlike Nye, the science guy, a celebrity in his own right, the setting is flipped. The two personalities provide massive platforms. Previous Rogan podcast episodes with Hancock have had up to 27 million views. I'm a relatively unknown scholar, who can share the cultural achievements of past people around the world. My challenge, how to deal with the torrent of misinformation Hancock expresses. He purports all human technology is explained by an Atlantis, a lost Ice Age civilization with advanced technology that was washed away by floodwaters. This single civilization built many ancient monuments around the world, according to Hancock. Over the past 14 months, through the fog of cancer treatment, I pondered how to argue a negative, the non-existence of an alleged civilization. It's easy to get bogged down in a gish gallop, a barrage of fake facts and weak arguments hurled by an opponent. Debunking one pseudoscientific point after another, I would lose the chance to present a narrative of actual human achievements. Recent misinformation research suggests a better approach, nicknamed a truth sandwich. Don't start with a fake claim, start with the truth. In the middle, you can address some fraudulent points, but top it off with another slice of truth. Evidencing reality, what is known from archaeological and historical research, contradicts the lost Ice Age civilization. And that evidence for reality comes from millions of sites and billions of archaeological objects. Worldwide, Ice Age hunter-gatherers still build monuments, ones made from mammoth bones, enormous mounds of soil, and stone megaliths. Archaeologists can even probe areas that might have flooded tens of thousands of years ago, potential locations for any drowned civilization. Movements of Earth's crust have hoisted some Ice Age coastlands above the sea, allowing researchers to identify Stone Age sites in places such as southwestern Crete and islands west of mainland Canada. Underwater archaeologists also dive, find, and publish on undersea Stone Age sites. There's no need to debunk every ephemeral fingerprint of the lost civilization Hancock raises. Instead, it's about that truth sandwich. The reality presented from research on millions of sites worldwide leaves no room for a lost Ice Age civilization. Some 171,000 sites on the Horn of Africa alone. This spectacle is not about winning an argument. My goal is to share the magnitude and diversity of human achievement. Pseudo-archaeology robs indigenous peoples of their heritage. Hancock's narrative of engineering feats from some lost civilization includes the Sphinx, pyramids in Mesoamerica, and an enormous terraced monument in Indonesia. Doesn't include Stonehenge? No, Hancock says ancient British people built that. Hancock and other pseudo-archaeologists center white Europeans as able creators while chalking up the accomplishments of other peoples to outside influences. The Atlantis civilization, aliens, lizard people, or the lost empire of Tartaria. Real archaeology inoculates people against the online and in-person racists who take Hancock's polished presentation and twist it into overt white supremacy. I don't expect to convince Hancock or his diehard fans, but among the millions who may listen, some may be swayed, not by occult mystery, but by beautiful realities of our human past. I just love everything about this breakdown. Like, I think that's just a really, really good breakdown of how to engage in actual debate. And how to productive or a compelling case for stepping into environments that are hostile to, rigor, good information, sanity, and saying it is worth it anyway. And the response has been overall pretty good. Like, actually, from what I can tell from social media, the response is overall a lot more positive, suggesting that this strategy may have paid off. Maybe it doesn't, it doesn't solve a problem. But as a strategy, it actually provides a really interesting guidebook on, you know, what do you do? How do you start with a claim and rebut it in a way that is educational and compelling and interesting and honest and not getting mired down in, you know, the rage bait and the old man yells at cloud of it. Because the old man yells at cloud of it says, oh, it's just a game. Oh, it's just XYZ. Oh, why does it matter? So what? Why do I care? This seems to lay out pretty compelling evidence and arguments that you can actually present that in a why do I care? Why is this relevant to me? What is cool about this? What is intriguing? What is fun? And also real? And how does that compelling narrative making in and of itself say something that's more fun and rings more true and has more resonance than a pseudo-archaeology mistrust of science and authority? I just have to be sad. I was hoping it would link to you know, our friend Enclave Microstate's work on Tartaria. Because that's a thing. So, you know, that was a fun thing. I've not listened to the episode. It's like 2 hours long. I don't have time for that. But, you know, it is a pretty major thing that happened in SciComm and ArchaeologyCom. And we do love that. So, huge shouts to Flint for that. Flint also had a big giant list. And our dear friend Bill Farley added to that list of a bunch of people that you should follow who do ArchaeologyCon online. Like, vast amount of work. And some really compelling, like, compilations of things. So I'll find that and I'll post it in the Discord for that Twitter thread. Because it's pretty impressive. Like, there's a lot of folks out there. And the takeaway, I think, is there's a lot of really small channels. I am still a very small channel. I love spreading misinformation. Who are doing really interesting work and trying to bring their expertise to it. I still think the next stage, which I still am bad at, is how do we make that more connected, more communal, and less individualized. Step 1 is to get other people on, so I need to get back to working on that. And for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you know, Jan Kramer is someone I am going to invite on, and not the only person I hope to invite on. So, hooray. Okay. How are we feeling, chat? That's feeling like a pretty good spot to wrap up, because I think that's everything I can think of. We covered the studio archaeology, we covered the games news, we tried to remember some other games news. We failed to remember some other games news. Good stream? Good stream. Alright. So yeah. If you all enjoyed this, of course make sure you hit the follow button. But we'll be back, I guess, day after tomorrow, Saturday, with that Talos Principle 2. And then we get to be in Nganga. So I better look up some stuff on Bantu culture, shouldn't I? Because culturally specific storytelling is good. Alright. So, I hope you all enjoyed this. It was wide-ranging. It was very wide-ranging. But yeah, if you're watching the VOD and enjoyed this, come join us live. But we'll appreciate you all the same. So, let's see if anyone's online doing fun stuff to send y'all over to. Another feature that could be good. Let's see. Doesn't look like there's a lot happening. Sophie is playing Rise of the Ronin, but is in the middle of the game, so I don't know if that's, you know, new or something people want to hop into. So it looks like otherwise we may just kind of be calling it a day here. So thank y'all for tuning in, and I will. Melissa is doing AC Odyssey. Yeah, I'll send you over to Melissa. Melissa's an Egyptologist. So has been doing lots of Assassin's Creed stuff in the last time, and also hosts guests and lectures. So very lovely person. We'll send you over her way. And then the credits will roll. All right, so I'll catch y'all later. And whenever that is, thanks for tuning in. And again, also thank you so much to all the patrons listed on the side of the screen who make this possible. And extra special thanks to Son of the Sea 1008 and Junara and the people who gifted subs to them. It's super appreciated. And again, I hope y'all have a good rest of your night. Okay, bye-bye.